Court. Welcome to derived, which is the Hebrew word for way or path. And this is our weekly Psalmcast, meditating on the way as we walk through the various Psalms of the Hebrew Bible, particularly the Psalter itself. And my name is John Mark Hicks.
My name is Bobby Valentine. We do want to welcome you to Direct, where we do meditate, think about the Psalms and the way that the Holy Spirit has laid out for us to walk in faith and trust before Him. And today's psalm is going to really dive deep into that and in the intimate, wonderful relationship that God has called Christians, but also ancient Israelites, into this wonderful relationship with the one who has made us and called us and knows us. And we want
So,
to know him.
so our psalm today is Psalm 139. And when you look at 139, it falls in between the songs of ascents and the concluding Hallel, the concluding praise psalms that begin in 146. So in between are these psalms of David.
Yep.
So Bobby, tell us something about why that positioning is important to note and understand.
Yeah. The Psalms of Ascent, as every those who have watched our show up to this point know that there's this arc that goes all the way back to almost the beginning of book five, that tells the story of the Exodus, brings us to Mount Sinai. That's Psalm 119. And we're on this pilgrimage to Jerusalem or Zion. That's the song, the Psalms of Ascent. And there we're praising, we're basically symbolically, literarily, and liturgically inside the capital of God's empire, the kingdom of David, here on earth. And then all of a sudden you have this breaking out of praise um, but then following that, we have this emergence of something that has sort of disappeared, which is the figure of David. David assumes this um, a priestly role of leading God's people now that they're back together here at the end of the Psalter in the presence of the Lord and worshiping. This opens up, not only has the king returned, like in Psalm 89, the Davidic kingdom disappears, it's failed, but God is keeping his promise. That's Psalm 110. He's going to reign forever. He's going to be a priest after the order of Melchizedek in Psalm 110. And so you're opening up this not only Davidic, but a priestly role, a messianic role, where the king of Israel is leading God's people. And so you get these next series of 8 Psalms that are all assigned to David, and it leads into the culmination, the doxology, where that's where we're going like a train right now. We're heading towards the doxology that God is watching over us. Even after the Hallel, we had that dark Psalm 137, but God was there. And that's what we're going to see here in Psalm 139. Wherever we go, he's already there and he's going to take
Mhm.
care of us. He's going to watch over us. He's going to lead us, it says, grab
So,
hold of our hands, and he will not forsake us. And I think that's really what this psalm is all about in the end. And we want to know him, and he already knows us. And that's reason to
so,
praise.
so this block of Davidic psalms is kind of a renewal of Israel, right?
A renewal. So,
They have come to the temple to worship the songs of ascents, and now David shows up again, and God's blessing or God's interest in David or God's sense of the future with David, God's renewing covenant with David and renewing covenant with Israel, and then Israel
right.
breaks out in praise at the end. So as we look at Psalm 139, the sort of genre that we might have here, this is a very personal psalm. It has the me and the I, and it's a relational psalm. You, Lord, it starts off. The first word is Yahweh.
Yeah.
So the first word is the name of the covenant God of Israel. That I have a relationship with this covenant God, and that's going to shape the whole of the psalm as the worshiper the I here, maybe
Yeah,
the David, right? Or uh, Israelite, or the corporate people, all of that would be true. But it
that's
is
right.
a very personal and intimate sense of relationship between the creator of heaven and earth, the God of Israel, and this particular person who experiences God in the
That's right.
depths of this person's life.
That's right. This psalm, David is being used as the person who is the liturgical leader in a
Mm-hmm.
literary sense, but the text is the invitation to every Israelite that comes that he knows me, not David, and he knows the journey that I have been on, both good and bad, up and down, in the dark places and in the light places. He has formed me. He has known me. And I think that is just such a really important point because Israel's story is one of grace, and the children of Israel's are invited to participate in that story. They find their identity in there, and I think we're going to see some of that in this psalm as well.
Mm-hmm.
That He formed me, not just us, but me, and I have a place in what God wants to do to bless the world, and I'm
Yeah.
part of that.
when
So,
when some people think of the Hebrew Bible, they tend to think of it as ritualistic and formal, and it lacks the intimacy. It lacks the
yeah,
intimacy of an indwelling spirit, for example. But what we see in Psalm 139 is a depth, is a personal depth of intimacy with God,
oh,
and
absolutely.
that is part of the life of Israel. It's part of the life of the believers in Israel. So it's not like the Hebrew Bible is just this formal, external kind of relationship with God. Now we see in this psalm a deeply intimate, personal
That's right.
relationship with God.
That's right. I think you're exactly right that this psalm opens us up to a world of Israel's personal, intimate relationship with Yahweh that sometimes even Christians themselves seem to not experience. This person says, I'm going to come into your face. It's translated as presence in most of our English translations, but to get in somebody's face is to be in their personal space,
Yeah.
and to be
Mhm.
welcomed there is a big big thing. I mean, that's like husbands and wives. They get into their personal, a child with their parent, on the lap. That's a kind of an image here that is being, as Paul's going to say in First Corinthians, that just it's the framework. He says, "I know only in part." Right now, talking about the great love chapter in First Corinthians 13, I will know, that's the future, fully, even as I have been known. God has
Mhm.
always known me, pulling us into this relationship. And when Paul uses that language in First Corinthians 13, he's got the whole history of Israel behind him. Yahweh, he's sung this song just like Jesus sung this psalm. He knows me in ways that I don't know myself. And
Right.
that's why I give the invitation. Come and search me, Lord. I don't even know my own heart. That's the testimony in the Hebrew Bible. The heart is more deceptive than anything, but Yahweh, he sees it all. Come on in and look at me and find anything that is a barrier to you, because I want to be with you.
Yeah.
I want,
So
and
the
that's
idea,
the invitation.
I think that idea of face is really important. I mean, that's the typical way the Hebrew Bible refers to coming into the presence of God, is to come before the
Yes.
face of God.
Yep.
And the ultimate eschatological, or Revelation 22, is that we shall see his face, right? That we
That's
will
right.
have that
Exactly. That's a great point.
communion
Yep.
with God, be entering
Yep.
into his presence. Well, let's go ahead and read the psalm, and then we can start walking through it and talking about it. And Bobby is our designated lector, reader. Psalm 139.
Psalm 139, to the leader of David, a psalm. O Lord, You have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down, and you are acquainted with all my way. Even before a word is on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain it. Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light around me become night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day, for darkness is as light to you. For it was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works that I know very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes beheld my unformed substance. In your book were written all the days that were formed for me, when none of them as yet existed. How weighty to me are your thoughts, O God! How vast is the sum of them! I try to count them. They are more than the sand. I come to the end. I am still with you. For it was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works that I know very well. Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with a perfect hatred. I count them my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my thoughts. See if there is any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Well, I messed that one up there, Bobby, because I left out a couple of verses and we repeated a couple of verses. We said fearfully and wonderfully made twice. Okay.
It's,
Well, okay.
it
Well, what
was
we
kind of
left
like
out,
the old needle on the LP,
that's
it
that's
would
why you were
skip.
kind of
So
going, what's up with that? I mean, that's not how it goes. We're going backwards. So what we
yeah,
left
it's
out was
okay.
verses 19 and 20 when the psalmist says, "Oh, that you would kill the wicked, O God.
That's right.
The
That's right. I was
bloodthirsty
wondering
would depart from me.
yeah,
Those who speak of you maliciously and lift themselves up against you for evil."
yeah.
In other words, the description of the evildoers, which in verses 19, to 22, we have a kind of a disturbing piece, some would think. In fact, it's left out of the lectionary readings for the most part, and most people tend to
In
overlook it.
in the
And
modern ones, yeah.
yeah,
So
particularly. But we'll get to that in a moment, verses 19 to 22. But let's start
yeah,
off with the top here,
yeah.
where we have
Versus
this opening. You have searched me and known me. So
that's
we're going
right.
to begin and end in the same with the same language. In
Correct.
verse 1, O Lord, you have searched me and known me. And then we're going to end with the prayer or the petition, God, search me
That's right.
and
In
know
verse
me.
23.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's
So
right.
it kind of bookends the psalm,
That
this
it does.
searching and knowing.
Yeah.
And the idea of knowing here is, as we talked about earlier, the notion of intimacy, that God
Right.
knows us deeply, and as you said, knows us better than we
Yeah.
know ourselves. But
Exactly.
yet we are always
Mhm.
seeking, we're seeking that searching discernment of God, that God is always
Yeah.
searching our hearts and opening up our hearts to ourselves so that we can see ourselves the way God sees us. And that's what we
Yeah.
want. That's what we want. We want to be able to see ourselves in a way that honors God and reflects who God is. And to
Yeah.
do that, we need God at work in our hearts to open
Exactly.
up our hearts to our own eyes, you might
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, it's that first section, verses 1 through 6. The word "you" dominates there six
Mhm.
times. That's going to follow in 7 and following, where the "I" is 6 times as well. But this examination in the ancient world, I may have said this before, but when they would bring an animal before it would be sacrificed, it would undergo an examination by the priest, both in Israel and in the pagan culture around it, and then they'd open it up and they would see they're peeking inside and all that kind of jazz. So I think there is a sacrificial imagery in the background here that God knows me like a priest would this animal that's being sacrificed. He's looked at me, he's discerned my thoughts, but he's seen things that are not even just body parts. He's looking at thoughts and hearts and paths and all those kind of stuff. He
Mhm.
knows things that even we ourselves do not know. When he comes down and where we can confess, like Psalm 19 says, who knows their secret sins? Or then in Jeremiah it says, the heart is the most deceitful of all things. We don't even know ourselves. But Yahweh, he has been able to search me, but not only did he search me, the text says he knows me.
Yeah.
And that's past tense. He's known me. He has
Yeah.
known me, and that's why I can come here in all my flaws. And I think that's important for us to see, that every Israelite knows that ultimately they are flawed, but God has still known me and searched me and brought me in here, and he has guided me, and this
Yeah,
is wonderful.
this is such a thorough knowledge. All right.
Exactly.
It's a present thorough knowledge so that God knows what we're thinking, God knows what we're desiring, God knows what we're doing when we rise up or we go to bed. God knows what's on our what we're going to say, even before
Yes,
it's on our tongue. God knows us completely,
that's right.
fully. And
Yeah,
I think um, I think that we need to call attention, as you just did a moment ago, to the idea of the word path or ways. That's our word
that's right.
direct there in
That's a
verse
word.
3.
That's right.
Direct.
So,
God knows our direct. God knows the way we're walking.
that's right.
And one of the things this psalmist wants is, okay, I know you know the way. I know you know my way. You know how I'm walking, but I want to walk with you, right? I
Right.
want your path to be the way I'm walking. And so
Yeah,
I'm grateful that you have searched me. I'm grateful that you know me. But now that you know me, work on me,
right.
search me more, know me more, so that
Yeah,
I can be in tune with your way. And that's what we get at the end of the psalm there, right? In
exactly.
verse 23 and verse 24. See if there is any wicked direct. See it, verse 24. See if there's any wicked direct in me and lead me in the direct, the way
That's right.
everlasting. So we want
Exactly.
to be in the way. So the point of
Yeah,
meditation for this psalmist is not only a sense of intimacy with God and a recognition of that, but a sense of transformation.
that's
I
right.
want to be
That's right.
transformed so that I'm walking in your way, not
That's right.
my way, right?
Yeah, examination results in divine conforming us to
Yeah.
his image, conforming us to the path that we're going. So that, I mean, that's going to show up there in verses 9 and 10, that he's going to lead us with his hand.
Mm-hmm.
Even, where, it's not me guiding my way, it is him. He will lead me even in places that I may not want to go. I mean, that's the constant urging of we humans, that we want to go a way that God doesn't want us to go. But if we're claiming that we want to walk on his path, basically, we're giving him permission to do whatever he wants to do to make us walk on that path.
Yeah.
And so here's like, I don't even know my own way because he says in verse 6, this is too wonderful for me.
Right.
Self knowledge is beyond my own ability to really know who I am.
Yeah.
God knows who I am, but my heart is deceitful. So that's why I need to be conformed to his path and his way, and allow him to do that. So
I
it's
think that,
quite a radical prayer, actually.
yeah, I think it speaks to the something that we hear a lot today about you got to find your true self. Now,
Yes.
I think it
Yeah.
really depends what you mean by that. But
Yeah.
if you mean I got to create my own meaning, I got to find my own path, I have to create my own self, then no, that's not what this psalmist is interested in. The
Exactly.
psalmist is
And
interested in what God's going to create in him. So we get the idea of testing in the last verse 23 as well, that God's going to
right,
test and
right,
examine and form us into the way in which God wants us to walk. And that's what's too wonderful. It's the knowledge that God has of us, the intimacy that God has of us is beyond us. We are incapable of it. We can't go
that's right.
discover ourselves. What we need
Yeah,
to do is find ourselves in the way, in the direct of God,
that's right.
and God will transform us and give us our identity. Not that we're going to create our
That's right.
own identity.
No, and ultimately in this psalm, that identity is gonna, as you said, not creating ourselves, but it's something that's gonna be rooted in the story. The
Right.
person finds their identity in the parallel of their life with Israel's life, where God has done something for Israel, He's doing it in me. So I find um, uh, my destiny, if you will, in God's purpose and His story, and I find what
Hmm.
I'm doing there. So the story's already
Yeah.
there, and the meaning's there, and I find my path on God's path, on the way.
Now
So
I think, yeah, we're going to get there in verses 13 and following. But back up just a little bit to verse 5. You hem me in behind and
yep,
before, you lay your hand on. I mean, this intimacy is kind of scary
it can be.
that God knows us better than we know ourselves.
It's
And, uh,
intimidating,
and
absolutely.
I don't want you to know everything about me, Bobby. I mean, there's some things that I don't want you to know.
I
To
like
have that kind
secrets.
of intimacy
That's right.
is a scary thing because I'm naked before God, right?
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
just this is it. I mean, this is who I am. And
Yeah.
but the psalmist is not afraid of that.
No, he's not.
The you lay your hand on me is not an image of getting beat up. To
No,
lay your hand on me is an image of comfort and peace and assurance and security. It's the
right.
right hand that's going to lead the psalmist, as we'll see in a few moments. So that fear about intimacy, about being naked before God, is hopefully the kind of thing that happens as we are transformed into the image of God, that we are willing to be intimate with other human beings
That's
and
right.
to show ourselves and
But
to
the
be
psalmist
who
is
we
not,
are, right?
yeah, the psalmist is not afraid of God. It's not
Hmm.
afraid of this intimacy. God's not there to hurt him,
It's
destroy
overwhelming
him.
to him, but
Oh,
it's
that's
not
right.
afraid of it. Yeah.
Um, it's Adam was naked before the Lord, before the fall, before the sin, and unafraid, naked and unafraid. Here you have the invitation of the Israelites coming into this thing, and he is laying his hand on me in a way that I trust him. I
Mm.
trust this God to lead me and hold my hand wherever we're going. And as in other
Yeah.
places in the Psalms, he's going to make a table in the presence of my enemies, and I have nothing to fear. So
Mm.
this is good news for the psalmist, even though it's too wonderful. It's he's in awe of this, or she is in awe of this, and it's an invitation to just be in awe of God and the and the kind of the degree of the interconnection and intimacy that this Israelite feels
Right.
towards the God of covenant.
And as you
And
said, it's no matter where we go either, right? It's
exactly.
about a
Yeah.
presence with God in the moment, but it's also about space. No matter what
Yeah,
space I enter into, God
that's
is
right.
present. And that's what we get in verses 7 through 12
Yeah.
is the
Yeah,
sense of God's continual presence, no matter what the circumstances.
that's
Um,
right.
so what's going on in this question? Where can I go from your spirit, or where can I flee from your? Does the psalmist want to flee from the presence of God?
I as I read it, I don't think that that's the case. We've got Jonah's trying to do that, but we don't
Right.
see that
We got
here.
Adam and Eve hiding from the presence of
That's right.
God. Yeah.
I think this is a testimony more, a meditation on the awesomeness of the creator God of Israel who fills everything. In the ancient world, different deities rule different spheres. And here, this particular person comes along and testifies that wherever I go, or in theory could go, my God, the God of Israel, is already there. He's there before I get there. And wherever I could possibly be, in theory, in light or darkness, in life or in death, Sheol, God, the God of Israel, Yahweh, has access to that place. I cannot get beyond him. And so that is both horrifying and comforting as well, because I'm
Hmm.
never out of his reach. And I
Yeah.
think if you follow the story in the Psalms, like what we've just tried to do, we were in Psalm 139, not 139, but 137, and you're in the death. You are in Sheol. You are in
You're in
the
exile.
grave,
You're in
so to
Babylon.
speak.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
and where's God? Where's Yahweh? Yahweh is with the people and he
Right.
brings them out. And so
Mm.
I think what we have here is just that testimony in the darkest of nights, Yahweh is still with us. And in fact, that darkness, as it's going to say there in verse 12, is nothing but light to God.
Yeah.
He can't hide this.
Yeah.
And Baal may not be able to do it, Marduk may not be able to do it,
Well,
Amun Re may not be able to do it, but Yahweh,
let's
he
focus a little
can.
bit on verses 8 and 9 for a moment. If I ascend to heaven, if I go to the sky,
Yeah, the sky.
or if I go underground, Sheol. Right?
Sure.
So if I go up or down, and then in verse 9, if I go the wings of the morning, okay, that's the rising of the sun, right?
Son, yeah,
East. And settle at the farthest limits of the sea. And in Israel, the sea is west,
right.
right? So you get kind of a up, down,
Yeah.
and wide, this side or that side, which gives you that sense of totality. No
There's no
matter where
sense,
you
no
go.
place in creation you can
Right.
go
Exactly.
that's,
And even in death, even in
even in
Sheol,
death.
God is still present there in some
Yeah,
sense. All right. Now that's a little different than what you get in some other places that Sheol seems to be kind of an absence. But I think Psalm 139 is telling us, no, no, wait a minute. Sheol might be the absence of earthly existence, as you're no longer in the temple to praise God anymore when you're in Sheol. But
right.
when you're in Sheol, you're still with God.
God has access.
God is
That's
still
right.
present there. All right.
That's right.
So you don't lose God's presence by in death,
Right.
whatever that might mean for an Israelite.
Yeah.
But the point of the presence is not simply God's kind of a spectator or an observer. The point of the
Um,
presence is that God is actively engaged with the person.
that's right.
And we see that your hand leads me, your right hand holds me back. I'm within the grasp of God. I'm within the embrace of God.
Right.
Wherever I am, up, down, back, forth, God is leading me. And
That's right.
that goes back to the story of Israel as well, right? That God led
It does.
Israel through the
That's right.
waters and through the wilderness and into the land of promise.
And that's true. And that's going to come out even more in this next area where God in the secret places, God is deeply involved in shaping and molding and creating
Hmm.
not only myself, but that's going to be rooted in the story of Israel. But God's there. God's
Yeah,
not in the places, but also in time, you know, from the beginning to the end,
sure.
this God is involved, as the New Testament could say, before the creation of the world, before I was born, the Alpha and the
Hmm.
Omega. This God is the Lord of history. That's Israel's claim. He's not just the Lord of creation, he's the Lord of history. And here, that's where he's at. He
Yeah.
is all over at all times, all places, bringing about his purpose, his
Uh,
purpose.
One of the things that's
And
been important to me in this psalm over the years is verse 11, that kind of self-reflection. If I
yep,
say
yeah,
darkness is covered, if I feel like, man, I am in the dark, I
yeah,
am feeling the loss, I'm feeling the absence of God. And God is not in the dark places. I've kind of
I've
thought
been
of,
there. You have too.
we've both been there. But the psalmist is quite clear that, we may feel that. We may feel that sense of absence in the dark spaces, but God is present because it's
God is
not dark
present.
to God.
Yeah.
God brings light into those dark spaces. And part of coming out of the dark spaces, part of walking through the darkness is to see the light, to
That's
see
right.
the light that's at the end of the tunnel, you might say, and to walk toward the light, to walk toward
Yep.
God. We can get lost in the dark if we turn our back on the light. But if we
Right.
recognize that the light is God shining in the darkness, then we embrace the light and we move through the darkness toward the light. And that has been really an important dimension of my own walk
Right.
in terms of God, intimacy with God.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. That is, I think you're right. I mean, because it starts off with the
Yeah. Hmm.
if
If
I
I
say
say,
these kind of things, I mean, he's like, I know this is not true, but if I did say this, I have faith in this God of Israel. He's really there. And that may be even one reason why the word Sheol is here, because in the ancient world, especially Israel, that is the one place that you're supposed to be where the gods have no control whatsoever, no
yeah,
access to. But our God, he does. If I go to the darkest of the dark place that is Sheol, he's there and
the
he
place
is
of the dead,
Lord.
right? Hmm.
And it's like, okay, it is as light to you.
Yeah.
But the presence, I think it's not just saying he's there. It's the presence of the Lord, this face, the spirit. That's how it begins. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I go
Hmm.
from your face?
Relationship is not
There's
lost.
no,
Right.
that's right. There's nothing I can do to escape from this, because partly because he wants me. And that's, I think, the next section. He's the creator God,
Yeah.
he's the maker, and he's made me for that relationship that we have just testified to in the first
Yeah.
12 verses.
So let's move into verses 13 to 18. And typically a lot of people hear this as only about, okay, God, I was in my mother's womb and God was weaving and knitting me. And I think that's true. I think the intimacy of God begins not when we come out of the birth canal, but the
Right.
intimacy with God begins within the womb. That's one of the dark places that God's at work is in the
Exactly.
womb. So I think that is a that's a very important point to make, that God is an active co-creator, of the birthing process. But you also think that there's more going on than just my personal,
Right.
God's personally creating me in my mother's womb. What more do you see going on in this context, Bobby?
Yeah. So part of this is obscured in our common English translations. There's other translations that you can get. But so, like in verse 13, where it says, "For it was you who formed my inward parts." Well, that actually is you who created, you created my kidneys or my hearts, and those are the hidden parts. That's the inward being. But the word create there is important. And then it goes on in verse 14, where in our New RSV says, I praise you for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. But you can translate that as I was wonderfully or wondrously set apart. And I think about your acts, your wonderful works, all of those words create or set apart, works, acts, all those are
Wonderful.
Exodus language.
Hmm.
That's what that is. It talks about, comes from the book of Exodus, when God has created Israel by redeeming them. And so this person says that the miracle that God used to create Israel, that is the Exodus, helps explain my own human birth, but also my human birth helps explain the mystery of the creation by God's grace, his hesed, of the people of God themselves. There's some kind of relationship here. And my life, God calling me into this intimate relationship with him, parallels his calling the people of God that we call Israel into this covenant of love, as Deuteronomy is going to call it, the covenant of love with the Lord that we sometimes don't see. And so this isn't just, how marvelous it is, but it's that I am finding my identity in a story and an action of God that goes long before I was born and goes on long after I am
Yeah.
here.
So God,
And
God sort of birthed Israel in the Exodus,
birthed Israel.
right?
And he calls
And
himself the mother.
right,
So,
calls himself the mother. So in birthing Israel, when I look at my birth as part of Israel, then I'm seeing my connection to the story. I'm seeing my connection to the
absolutely.
history. So it's not like I am born and I'm now this individual with some kind of autonomy that I can now do whatever I want. No, I'm born into a story.
I'm born
I,
into a
I'm,
story.
I'm born into this people and the people whom God is forming, not creating into existence, yes, but also forming into his way, into his
Into his,
direct, his direct,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And that's part of what's going on here. It's not just kind of an abortion text, as sometimes it gets
right.
reduced to.
It's
It is much bigger than that, and I think that that's
it
where that
is.
language of that I'm written in your book. In your book were written the days that formed me.
Exactly.
How do you hear that language, Bobby?
Oh, I hear this as saying that my not that God has um, m- micromanaged my life even before I'm born, but that how do I want to put it? That my destiny is within His purpose before I even know what it is. And that my life is somehow a discovering or
Mm.
the adventure of faith, walking on the way on the purpose that he's already set out, not only for me, but for Israel. And my life and my ways are going to follow that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I think it makes sense to me because I don't think what the psalmist is saying here is my life has now been planned out.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Who I'm going to marry and how many kids I'm going to have, or whether I'm
right.
going to marry at
Yeah, I don't think
all,
it's that at
or
all.
whether I'm
So
going to get a divorce. Or no, that's it's not that kind of planning. It's more the book has been written of the story of Israel,
exactly,
and that you're now part of this story, and that this is what God is writing in your story. This is what God is writing in your path, your way,
right.
which is the way of God. So it's not so much a predestination sort of thing going on here as it is an invitation and a recognition of the story in which we're living, and that we are
Right.
on this path of discovering intimacy with God as we walk out the way of God
Exactly. Yeah.
in the story of God. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And I think that the book of Psalms itself, as we sing through that in worship, it tells us what that way is, what that story is. We hear that story all over.
Mm,
God is creating Israel. He's walked with them, taken through the Exodus. He lives with them, dwells with them, and he's pulling them to himself. That's why the Psalms of Ascent are right there near the end. And then we get this invitation to worship on in mystery of God with us, is that our destiny is fellowship with God himself. He wants to live with
right.
us. And so
And
we're on this path with
yeah.
him, and my days are numbered. My destiny is glory. My destiny is love.
Hmm.
It's what it is. It's
Yeah.
it's the Hesed of God.
And I think
So
that's why you get this response in 17 and 18 about, wow,
exactly,
amazing.
exactly. It is.
It's a response to the grace of God in making
Yeah,
us and forming us and drawing us into this story and putting us in this story
that's
so
right.
that we know what our identity is by walking with God rather than creating our own identity. We have been given an identity that is
Yeah,
wonderful and fearful, and it is part of what God is doing with us.
yeah.
And it's all grace. It's gracious.
Exactly, exactly,
We are birthed by God.
exactly.
We are not earning our status, right? We are being given a status as the
Yeah,
children of God.
yeah. And when we think about this in light of the story, I mean, these words in verse 12 and 14 talking about the Exodus, and you go back to Exodus or just read the stories like in Psalm 136, okay, the great Hallel, and you look at that, these are the works, okay, all the stuff that God did in Egypt to create or give birth to Israel. The psalmist is saying those are the same kind of things that he did to create me. He created me and brought me into this. And there's the awesomeness. It's like, wow, because most of the time in people are just nothing, they're nothing to the gods or nothing, whatever. But here this God says, well,
Uh, you are
you
important to
mean
me.
everything to me.
Yeah, you
And
are
I
important to
think that's
me.
so important. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I, I got, I got a story I want you to participate in.
exactly.
It's an invitation.
So
So
yeah,
I think that's when we come to verses 19 to 22, which are regarded by many as kind of the what I want to say here, embarrassment.
they are.
That this is an embarrassing statement. We got to cut this out because it talks about hating those who hate you, Lord. It
Yeah,
talks about kill the wicked, uh, put them away from me,
yeah,
those who are against you. In other words, we're talking about imprecation here.
they
This is
are. Yeah,
part of an
yeah,
imprecatory petition. I don't
yeah,
want anything to do with the wicked.
yep.
Um, I want you to preserve me from them because I hate them the way you hate them.
That's right.
And that strikes us as, whoa, that doesn't sound very Jesus of him, right?
Yeah.
So, what do you do with that?
Well, the first thing I do with this is that verse 19, there's no real qualification on that except the next line that says the bloodthirsty in English or the men of blood. So it's a certain kind of wicked. But second, I want to put on there, since this guy has asked God to examine me, if I end up being the wicked, I'm the one that's also going to be getting dead. So I don't want to have anything to do with that. So there's almost like a self imprecation here on that as well. But third, I'd say that this is a bold statement of allegiance where the psalmist is saying, I don't want anything to come between me and you. So you need to do whatever you need to do to make me not one of those. So lead me, guide me, conform me, transform me, whatever you need to do, because I want to be on your side. I think this is a confession and a prayer. Do what you got to do to preserve my intimate connection with you, Lord.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this is. And it is radical. But saying that I don't want, I have no sympathy for people who are violent, men of blood. It's literally what it says, the men of blood. I remember, Paul ending his first letter to the Corinthians in 1 Corinthians 16, and he says, "Curse are all those who don't love the Lord Jesus." I mean, we forget that the New Testament actually does endorse this kind of language. We want to know and be known as people who are ultimately on the side of the God who is the God of goodness and grace, the people who are the victims of the violence. And I want him to know that I
Hmm.
disapprove of that. I
Yeah.
disapprove of that.
Yeah, I
And
think I like the way you think allegiance is a key word here. About covenant loyalty is
exactly.
another way
Yeah,
of saying that. It's a radical way of expressing radical allegiance.
it
So that
is.
even the word hate is not necessarily about the emotion.
Has nothing to do with it, in fact.
It's not about a malicious emotion. It's
Yeah.
more about what I'm committed to,
Yeah.
what my loyalty is, what my
Yeah.
allegiance is. So I hate them in the sense that they are not my allegiance. They are not
Yeah.
the path. They're not the direct that I want to
Yeah.
walk down.
Yeah.
I want to be in your way. I want to be on your path. And so if they are your enemies, they're my enemy.
Yeah.
They speak maliciously against you. They are people full of violence. That's not the kind of person I want to be. That's not who my God is.
Right.
So that kind of radical allegiance can be expressed in very provocative ways. And
Yeah.
it's not about, I don't love my enemy kind of thing. It's in
Right.
terms of a Jesus kind of context. This is about what Jesus says you can't have two masters.
It's exactly. That's a
Yeah.
good point right there.
Yeah, you either
Um,
love your one master and hate the other, right? That kind of thing. It's who's your master? Who's your God? Where
Jesus.
does your allegiance lie?
Well, Jesus does say that, hate your mother and your
Right.
brother and your. So I mean, we forget Luke's version of that kind of stuff, but yeah, I think you're exactly right, and I want to just throw this out there because these kind of statements in the Psalms are so maligned in evangelical circles and mainline Protestantism that this
Well,
is
they
not a
cut it out of their
call to
Bible
go
reading,
out
you
and
know.
do violence. This is poetic prayer language where the person is saying whose side I am on. I'm on God's side. It's not a
Hmm.
call to I'm going to go out and kill people. It has nothing to do with that whatsoever. But it is an examination, I mean, a prayer. Ultimately, this self imprecation, I mean, the
Yeah.
imprecation here is that God is going to turn that onus on me to find out whether there's anything about me that is displeasing to
Yeah.
Him.
So yeah, I mean, we get in
And
verse 23, we get the petition: search me.
exactly, search me.
I want to be this kind of person. I want to be loyal to you. Now, cut my heart open and look inside and search me, find out if there's anything in me, if there's any
Yep,
wicked way in me, is there any wicked direct in me?
yep,
Because I want to walk, I want you to lead me in your direct, your
yeah.
way.
I think that kind of language helps us understand other texts, like in Psalm 119, where it says it was good for me to be afflicted.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
do you
Yeah.
have undergone this examination and God did what he needed to do to get rid of the impurities in our lives, and hey, I've come out on the other side. And Psalmist says it was good for me. Now we didn't enjoy it, but I've undergone that searching. I've undergone that testing of who I am, and the Lord has brought me out and placed me on His path. And He was with me the whole time. He's with me every step of the way. He's never abandoned me, and I think that's such an
Yeah.
important point to remember here. Testing doesn't mean to say that I'm failing. It doesn't mean to say that I'm on somewhere else. God is with me in the test.
Yeah.
And I think that's so
Yeah.
important. It's
As the psalmist says,
the
I'm still with you. I'm
still
still
the
with
story
you.
of
No
Israel is
matter
that.
what's going on,
Yeah,
I'm still with you. Right.
yeah. God
God
didn't
is still there.
abandon the children of Israel in the wilderness. He
Yeah.
didn't. He was with them.
Right. He was there in the
And
fire and the cloud, right? All along the
absolutely.
way. I think that, sometimes we think about the wilderness experience as being separated from God, or
Yeah.
God is
Yeah.
absent in the wilderness. But that's not true of Israel. It's not true of Jesus. I don't think Jesus went into the wilderness alone. He was led
Yeah.
into the wilderness by the Spirit.
That's what it
And that's the
says.
same thing that's going on here. Search me, try me, not like I'm an object absent from your presence, but rather
Yeah.
as one who is in your presence, purify me and
Yeah.
refine me and test me
Exactly.
that I may become the one who walks in your way. Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Powerful
This is,
psalm. It's a
it is.
beautiful psalm, and it's a favorite of a lot of people. I know some people who think of this as their favorite psalm, and I think it is quite meaningful. So
It is. It
it's
is.
been good to walk through it with you, Bobby.
Thank you.
May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with us all.
Amen.
Amen.